Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good.
Hi.
Hello.
Morning or evening, depends on where you are.
Yeah, evening. I'm in Ukraine. It's right now it's 8 p.m. But it's hard to find the times that work for everybody
Yeah.
in this kind of working groups. So
Yeah, fair. Yeah, we got people in London and Hamburg, so I know what that's like.
by the way, happy to see you on this call. I think it's your first time joining, and also Jordan. I think is the first time joining in.
I was here briefly, mostly as a spectator at one previous meeting, but yeah, I'm certainly not a regular by any means. And nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. So it's four of us, and we should have 5 of us. No, we're actually missing Zoheb Khan. I think we can start because by the way, just in case, I will send link to agenda. And we basically follow the same process as GraphQL working group, just less formal, because usually it's only a couple of people. Hi, Zaheb. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Let's start from item number 1. Yeah, to participate in this group, you need to sign a specification, membership agreement, participation guideline, and code of conduct. You can sign it as an individual. No need to ask your company or legal department. And if you want to, because we record this calls on YouTube, so if somebody decide to join it next time, please find an agenda for that call and sign all the agreements. Hi, Uri. So next item is introduction of attendees. So let's go in the same order we have in agenda, and Uri can introduce afterwards. So let's start from me. I joined Apollo a month ago, and I'm maintainer of GraphQL.js, one of the maintainers of GraphQL.js. That basically all. And in Apollo, I work on Apollo server team.
Sorry,
Alex, you next.
Mistimed my sip. Yeah, hi, I'm Alex. I'm at Yelp. I'm currently championing an RFC for client-controlled nullability syntax, and I'm in San Francisco.
Hey, I'm Jordan. I work at Facebook on the Relay team, or I guess React Data team, working on Relay. And I worked on the @required annotation, which Relay added, which has some parallels with the RFC that Alex mentioned. So I'm here to see if I can, help with that. I'm also in the Bay Area.
Hello, everyone. I am Sahaj, and I help maintain GraphQL.js and a couple other foundation projects with Ivan, and I started working at the Guild.
Yeah, great news. Like my congratulations. So you finally get paid for your open source contribution.
Yep.
That's great
Thank you.
news. I think, yes, Sahab is disconnect. I think he's connected at one point, and yeah, so Uri, you next.
I'm Uri, I'm a member of the Guild. Happy to join.
So let's move forward. Yeah, we usually don't do note taking because we usually have like less packed agenda. At some point, we probably need to start doing that, but at that point, we usually skip this item. Yeah, review agenda. So we'll start from nullability implementation and release status. Sahid have a proposal on release schedule, and when we will have doc update from Sahid also, a new tutorial on box, so it's like cool update, and this migration of GraphQL Relay.js. Anything else anyone wants to add to agenda before we move on? No. So, yeah, action items. Sahid, anything like on my side? It was interesting month. I had a vacation initially and release, and also a new job at Apollo. So I focus mainly on 16.0.0 release, and I don't have any progress on my action items. As ahead, you have a couple of action items assigned to you. Anything we can review or close?
I think we were discussing them in the.
Okay, sounds good. Yes, so we can move forward. And first item is from you, Alex. So.
Yeah, for sure. So we got a RFC implementation that I'm planning on sort of opening for public review by the next working group meeting, and I want to bring it here and get y'all's thoughts on it first to make sure there's no like glaring issues. Would it be helpful if I briefly went over the proposal first?
Yeah, I think if you do short overview, it will be helpful. From my side, I like review it before a call, but to put it on YouTube and for everybody to familiar, yes, makes sense short one.
Okay, yeah, for sure. 1 second. Alrighty. Yeah, so the concept is basically that we want to allow people who are writing GraphQL queries to say that certain fields are non-null, like you'd be able to say in the schema, but just for the specific query. The purpose of that is that sometimes you're writing queries that are being used for features, and those features do not work without a certain field. So we want to be able to have a way to fail out of that, fail early. The current solution for this, at least at Yelp, is that pretty much all fields are nullable. So people have to go through each field and manually, individually do null checks on the ones that they can't live without, which is pretty labor intensive. The syntax we're using for that is an exclamation point. So you put an exclamation point after your field, and it would do the thing I just said. We have also, Lee had a suggestion to also include a question mark syntax, which would do the opposite. It would take a non-nullable field and make it nullable. His use case for that was for error boundaries. So being able to say, if you mark this field non-nullable and then it comes back null, it would bubble up, but it would only bubble up to the point where you have a question mark. That's the whole concept. Any questions?
So I read some of your documents. I think you have Google Docs with issues that currently is not solved or like you're working on. So as I understand, you don't want to include, this one, list elements, so it's out of scope, right?
Yeah, so it would be nice to have a solution for it, but it sounds like the people that we're talking to right now, which is Relay and then Netflix also has a directive that they're using. Neither of them have solved this problem, and it hasn't come up yet for them.
Okay.
So the plan
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah. And another one, you want to have like different semantics between schema enforce non-nullability and query enforce non-nullability, right? Is it different or same? Because in this document it's like mentioned, but without too much details.
It is It is basically the same. So there's an alternative that we talk about here, which would be non-destructive. Instead, it would just return an error. Like the server would return an error to the client, telling the client that, you know, we expected this field to not be null and it came back null. Talking with Relay though, and Jordan, you can speak to this if you want to. It sounded like they preferred the bubbling up option. So the semantics are exactly the same as if you were to mark it non-null in schema.
Okay. Yeah. So in that case, it's pretty easy to understand what these changes is about. It's just like shifting non-nullability to queries. So you have draft PR on GraphQL.js, or is it still like? Yeah. So it's PR on your fork, right? At the moment.
Yeah, this is on my fork. I haven't opened it up to Origin yet.
Yeah, you can do draft PR if you think it's not stable, or if you want people to be less do less detailed review, not to like go for every line of code. Just open a draft PR.
Okay.
I think it's the next stage because I think you had some PR against GraphQL.js and you closed it. So I thought something happened and you like stopped working on it. I think like other people may have the same idea. So if you open a draft PR, it will be better and you will get more early feedback.
Okay.
I think draft PR is indicating that it's not a final version and code is not final. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I can do that. We're basing this off of like the main branch right now, so it would be on top of 16.0. Does it? Is that the correct choice?
Yeah, correct one. Idea is that we like in the final stages of 16.0.0. I think we will discuss it is one of the next action items. But general idea that we ironing up last details, and like big feature like that, it doesn't make sense to backport it. If somebody want to backport it, it will make sense after we will have it on the main branch for some time and somebody explain why they cannot use new versions, they can backport it to older ones.
Okay, yeah, that's going to be my next question. Awesome.
Yeah, so it's not required. If somebody volunteer to do that, I can merge it, but it's totally no requirement. So you're doing like correct thing based on main, especially since this release is huge. So we switched to TypeScript. Sahid did a lot of work on that. So basically, like entire code base.
Gotcha. Yeah, the old implementation that we closed the PR on, that was against the JavaScript version. So yeah, this one's all against TypeScript. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'll open up a draft PR.
Anything else you need help with?
I don't think so. I think doing an asynchronous review will be better probably. Cool. Do that.
Yeah, just understand people will have some questions about lists and like about some other small details. So I think it's better, especially since we're 1 week from a working group meeting. It will make sense. Right now it's stage 1, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we cannot merge it anyway until stage 2. So I think it makes sense for people to discuss like semantic of feature, and later I can like review it, and hopefully by that time, by like in next couple of days, we'll figure out last details in release 16.0.0. So your change will come as 16.1.0.
Okay, cool.
As the next feature release. Because it's hard to estimate. Either like everybody say, okay, we're totally happy and let's merge it in, or somebody like will stumble upon something.
Yeah, I imagine people will have a lot of feedback on this one. They'll have a lot to say.
Anyone wants to provide, sorry for hijacking like a response. I just wanted to be sure that I'm not personally working with issue. Alex don't need any assistant with one. Anybody else want to provide like feedback or on this feature or PR?
Yeah, I'll just chime in because Alex and I have been having some good conversations that I think from the Relay perspective, we're like definitely in favor of this problem being addressed with syntax. But I think we also foresee that this proposal is going to sort of promote another challenge of isolated fragments in that like having to have every field in a single query agree upon the sort of non-nullability of a field is a pretty big limitation of how useful this can be. But we think that it's okay to like accept that limitation and foresee that it will help us move forward potentially in the future with some like fragment isolation proposal in the future. So like I think that's going to be a pretty big limitation of this proposal, but I think it's worth accepting that and solving it separately. So we shouldn't be too distracted by that limitation, hopefully.
Yeah, so to clarify, this group is like about implementation. Like idea that GraphQL.js implement whatever spec has, and GraphQL working group decide what written inside the spec. So
perhaps that's not relevant here.
Yeah, to that discussion, and it's like bigger crowd of people, and Lee is there, so it's more like to set like limits of a group. We discuss like release schedule, if somebody works on PR, or what plan we have like for GraphQL.js specifically. Okay,
cool.
Anything else from anybody until we move to next item?
No, I'm good. Thanks a bunch.
Cool. So next one is release status for 16.6 is on me. I think we have like an issue about RC1, and last time I checked, I need to recheck it one more time. So here's an issue, and I think right now I'm addressed all the items and all the PRs relative to this one. One thing we have, I would say like it's security vulnerability, but some couple items related to security stuff connected to, it's like minor breaking changes, I would say. So for example, right now we have like validation function, and by default it's return as many errors as you want. So it can return like 1,000 or 2,000 errors, so like 10,000 errors. And we have argument for max errors to limit it. It's just like not every tool is using it. So idea is to enable it by default. It's pretty small breaking change. It's kind of last minute, but at the same time, if we don't do it right now, we will wait until the next release. And I don't expect it's breaking anybody. Or another thing is like, we have this function validate schema, and you need to specifically call it, and not every tool calling it. So, and this is a function that validates name of fields and arguments. So basically, there is not every tool properly sanitize GraphQL schema. So idea is to add this check inside constructor. So it's not affecting anybody basically, but technically it's breaking change. So I want to like add it into, I can actually, I think what I do is to cut release. Right after this call, I will cut release RC4. So people can test it, and I will add with 2 PRs on top. So, and another thing I need to do also, because I'm responsible at Apollo on migrating to 16.0.0, I want to ensure that I personally will not have any problem migrating Apollo repos to new version. So I need to also run with checks. Basically, like scope of this release defined, everything is ready. It just with two security related last minute breaking changes. That's everything that Bo can release. And they're pretty small. So I want to finish it probably tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow.
So when do we expect the release?
So procedure is I will do next release candidate, and I will ping like everybody in with feedback issue. Everyone who like left feedback there and I will ask everybody to recheck, like including you and like Uri, and I will personally recheck this release candidate on Guild. If this will work for everybody, we will just release the same RC as 16.0.0.
Okay.
One thing I want to outline is that from our initial plan, a couple of things cut out. MJS is out of scope. Like we currently have MJS, but to really support CJS and MJS in one release, it's problematic. I promised it for in a plan for 16.0.0, but it's end up being a more complex problem. And another thing that is cut out is Dino support, but Dino is not tied to NPM releases or semantic versioning at all. It's tied to commits. So we can figure out we have one last remaining issue we could figure out it later. Just wanted to say that from our initial goal, it's like two goals that is postponed to next releases. I think Deno releases, for Deno we can add support without any breaking change at all. For ESM, I'm not sure. Maybe yes, maybe we can add it in subsequent release, but maybe it will require 17.0.0. And here's like original issue with the release plan. Is it sound?
ESM. So regarding ESM,
Yeah.
So there is a pull request from Pablo, 30 to 17. So
yeah, I need to write there,
okay.
and I already promised it a couple of times, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what would be better if I write issue and I reference it in PR. One thing, it's hard to search for like with relevant information in PR, especially if it like eventually closed. So I think ESM is big enough feature that it deserves like an issue. So I will write it an issue and I will tag this PR there. And maybe somebody can suggest, and I will outline why we cannot go simple road of just enabling exports, writing exports. It's not a question that we just need to list export. It's a question that we have so it's more complicated stuff. I will write it in the issue. Yeah, it's good suggestion. Yeah, and I think part of this discussion you added is sub point is Sahid is proposal for schedule.
Yes. So like if we go to GraphQL.js issue 51. So what I'm suggesting is, so we know like we started the release 16 plan like a long time ago, and we still haven't come to a release. Many things happened. So I suggest like we discuss every time we're gonna cut a release, but we are falling short on every single time. So I think we need like a solid plan, like we need a deadlines rather than like a plan that we are gonna cut release on this date. If our features come in, it's fine. If not, we should just cut the release and add them to the next coming release. Because if we keep pushing it back, there's so many pull requests that are piled up, we can't really merge them to main just because we're kind of stuck on it. So yeah, so if ESM we are not supporting it, we should just plan it out that next working group, or maybe even the one after that we are gonna get the ESM support in that, or like Dino support in that, so we know like what we are trying to do. Like, and it's more about transparency. Like, I mean, I attend every working group with the one, so I know why things are not going here, but like to explain to the community, we don't have really like a way to tell if why we are not doing what we are doing. It's kind of more like a closed door thing we are having here. So if we have like more detailed plan that, hey, this is the date we are cutting this release, we should think that's the way to go, to be more like, and then we also give our like long-term schedule that these are the versions we are supporting and these are the backporting. Because if you look at big projects, everyone does have like a LTS schedule and like release plans. Like if I go to Node.js, I can go look up what's expected on the next release and when to expect the next release. And we do have like a lot of big packages depending on us. So we need to be like more, that's why we are not cutting so many breaking changes, but still we need to be like, we need like a concrete layout on some place that people can trust and follow.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I think would be helpful if we think about possibilities and discuss it asynchronously, because if we start brainstorming on this call, I think plus it's not involving a lot of community. I totally agree that we need to have a policy for what we support and what not. And we need to have some idea of releases. In some way, it should be tied to GraphQL specification, because if we cut, but yeah, if we cut a new version of GraphQL specification, GraphQL.js, we should have version of GraphQL.js supporting all the feature from new specification. So there is like,
I think this is the same issue with GraphQL spec too, because I remember being discussed that a spec cut is happening in April and we are in September. So like, that's my proposal for the next working group meeting, that we need because we can't have a sustainable open source project if we don't know what people are doing. It doesn't feel open at all. It feels like still a corporate is running this thing, which isn't the case now. It's community driven, so we need to be like open to public why we are not doing what we are doing. Because like, I don't know why the spec cut isn't here. Like, if I go look at the meetings, they say it's coming next month, but it isn't, right? So that's like a bigger problem.
I partly like, I think we should separate a couple of things. We cannot estimate spec proposals. So if people working on something new for a spec, we should not block this process, but at the same time, if it's infrastructure like migration to TypeScript or better error class, cleanup error class, or ESM support or Dino support, some big infrastructure things, I agree, we need some, for things that we know, we need to have planning. And probably it makes sense to have them as issues and have like a dashboard, what planned for what version. And even if we fail to deliver it, but just cut release and move it, so people, but at least people know the pipeline. So yeah, but I don't want to include spec proposals because they follow their own like process.
Yeah, we can like pull the spec proposals when they're ready to be merged. They can be their own separate thing itself, I think.
Yeah, I think we can describe with constraints. I totally agree. It's something that we need to discuss. One thing, I think, we probably all agree 16.0.0 is out of this process. So we release it and figure out what to do with next releases, right?
Yeah, we should cut 16x and then we should plan for the following versions.
Yeah.
How and what we want. Just so.
One thing, probably it makes sense to figure out like support policy, like at least like support policy and add it to README. I think we can discuss as my suggestion, if anyone have proposal for this question. First, I think we need to define a set of questions and have like ideas for what people expect, because I don't think we need to copy Node.js, for example, support period of, I don't remember how many years, like 2-3 years. I think it's too long for library. It makes sense for Node.js, but it's too long for. So I will think, and another thing, I will ask people on open source team in Apollo what they think on this issue. Because, for example, I was surprised that Apollo server is supporting only 15. My personal feeling, it makes sense to support for a year everything that we released for a year, and be open to security fixes if somebody backport stuff. I'm okay with merging it and releasing it. So have some guarantee for some period of time, and have like, if people want to volunteer and do work, maybe we can support even like all the releases, but it's up to discussion, and only if people volunteer to do that work for us.
So should we like have this issue, like, I don't know, how do we want to proceed with this?
I think we need to edit on Jedi item next group. Have it, since it's important one, we need to start it first. Allocate like 20 minutes for it, and before discuss publicly, have a proposal. So if somebody disagree, they can come to this next working group and discuss it. So like, for example, if you write asynchronously, if we discuss it and come up with a proposal, and tag people from like typed GraphQL, like all big projects that use GraphQL.js. If they agree with proposed stuff, it's okay. If they disagree, we can have like discussion on next working group.
Okay, sounds good.
I'd like to add something on that. I think we're kind of missing the point. That's my personal opinion. I think that the reason that GraphQL 16 is taking more than 2 years is...
Sorry, Uri, can you adjust your microphone or something, because it's just me or everybody else have a trouble hearing Uri?
Yeah, he is kind of low today.
Just a second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, way better.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I was in a, yeah. So I think I'm sharing, this is like a personal opinion, but I think we're kind of, maybe, in my opinion, missing the point, because my personal opinion is that GraphQL 16 is taking so long. And when I say GraphQL 16, it's actually also, we can count it as GraphQL 15, because we can call it the TypeScript migration. It takes very long, and I think we actually addressed the reasons why it takes so long in the first GraphQL.js working group. I think we actually started the GraphQL.js working group because of that. And what we said, because the TypeScript migration had nothing to do with the spec release. And especially, and I think ESM support, this definitely has nothing to do with spec release. So all these things, the fact that they took, since we started discussing and talking about it in 2019, I think it has nothing to do with that, or with breaking changes, or with support, and working with other libraries like Apollo Server, or I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is that kind of like what we've seen in the working group today. There's tasks that need to be done, and they weren't being done. And it goes to the first GraphQL.js working group, where we said that there's a bottleneck. And we suggested what were the things to do in order to change that. And the thing is that nothing happened when you changed it. Like you and Ivan, those were proposals that you put through. It wasn't like solutions that we suggested. So I think the main reason that those things are not happening is because we do have a bottleneck. What's happening right now, even though now you're working in Apollo, the bottleneck just increases. There's more things that are coming. There's more changes, and on the meantime, we don't see any change. And I think that, you know, having more of your time is not going to help. What we said at the first GraphQL.js working group is that we need more maintainers. Now, you said you are saying for, I think, over a year that Sahaj would be the next person that will onboard to and would be able to cut releases, merge PRs, and maintain the library. But it still didn't happen. So I want to understand why, because I think this is the real issue here. And if it's not Sahaj, it could be anyone else. But I think we can't wait anymore because, to be honest, you know, it's been 3 years to migrate GraphQL.js to TypeScript. And I don't want to wait for 16 to get out because 16 is getting out for a couple of months now.
So, I think to be truthful, it's not like 3 years. 3 years, like people have some experiments, but nobody like really put work in. It was
I don't think this is the right characteristic because there's at least 2 guild members that put in the time and actually didn't.
No. I think yeah. So it's like 2 years. It's I think first PR from a guild like 2 years. So,
okay, 2 years.
Well, like let's not focus on dates. So yeah, I agree. That's why like I started all this process with Sahid. From all the people contributed PRs, I think his was the best quality, and he put effort in like making it to meet the quality standard and to really put effort on his PRs. So idea is that like more and more tasks is on load on him. Like issue here is before that it wasn't his job. So we usually have a calls on weekends. And also it wasn't my job to onboard new contributors. It kind of was. I had like 40 hours per month from GraphQL Foundation, but for all this work it wasn't enough. So it was like part-time job for me and part-time job for Sahid. So for project of that size and complexity, I think it's not easy process. I personally myself was onboarding like for a couple of years. I just if you compare to like any major projects from a person who joined and go to the stage of cutting releases, I don't think it's months. It's so right now it's a good process, I think. So Sahid is doing like documentation website and other tasks. Like he volunteered on that group. I think it's a nice progress. The fact that for some of the decision, you need to know a background of why certain things in certain ways. So I think we have a good progression in that direction. And especially since, I don't know, like Sahid, I don't know your work condition, but I expect since you join the guild, you have more time to work on this stuff. And I myself, I cannot say I will have like significantly more time, but because part of my work is still like I work on a Polar server and other stuff, but it became more reliable. So previously it was like depending on my workload with other stuff, and now it's more, I will have more dedicated time. So I like totally agree that maintainers is bottleneck. I just think going from one maintainer to two maintainers is not an easy task in big projects. So if you know can suggest how to speed it up without sacrificing quality, I'm totally up for it. And as like part of this process, you probably not see. So for example, like I understood that it's not enough to just have asynchronous reviews. So we have like a bunch of video calls with Sahid, and I spend like, I don't know, a lot of hours in getting him up to speed with like code bases and some stuff. Some like why certain thing is done certain way, or like explaining stuff. So I think I agree with the problem, and I agree it's affecting like what we have currently. I disagree on ideas that nothing is done. I think we're basically doubling the number of, in the process of doubling number of core contributors. And even if it's funny, we're doubling from 1 to 2, it's a lot of effort.
So what you're saying now is that Sahaj is a core contributor.
He's like, what I want to see, basically my feedback, if you want to do it publicly. My core feedback is to provide more reviews on existing PRs. So more review feedback. Like for some stuff, I'm like, I still have a context of why. So I'm not feel confident in Sahid being the person who merged like core changes, but I'm totally confident of giving like him commit rights, having him like review stuff. It's like even define a roadmap. I just think for some of the stuff we have like knowledge required to review code changes. So for docs, for example, he have like all the context, but for some of like stuff inside executor, I spend like last like years reviewing, and before that we don't have anybody active from people who write it or like work on it previously. So for a period of time, I still will be bottleneck on particular complicated parts of GraphQL.js. And in future, amount of this stuff should go down with Sahid building up. And every time he asks a question, I spend like a lot of time going into details why it's done like that, or why we. So I'm actively working on it. Another thing, it's usually done in direct messages or on video calls. So it's not it's not like publicly trackable.
What do you suggest for us if, let's say, because what I'm saying is not that you're holding things back purposely, but what do you suggest for us as a group that maintain many libraries in the community, has a lot of experience maintaining libraries in the community, including creating multiple, as you said, PRs for GraphQL.js. Some of them you merged, some of them you took and you merged and you rebuild them yourself. And if we disagree with you, disagree, and I'm not saying who is right or who is wrong, but I'm asking, like, what if we disagree with you about the level of, the person that, could maintain the library? If we disagree on the way to onboard new people on the library, and if we disagree on the way of working and the timelines. Okay. What do you suggest we should do?
So I will provide the feedback and you will say if it's answer your question or not. So my idea was always like that. A person can choose who he's onboarding onto open source project. So, but other maintainers, it's basically your own time. And so I choose Sahid. It's like a lot of time and effort to onboard a new person. And I learn it right now. But I'm not controlling, for example, who Sahid will onboard and spend like time and effort on onboarding somebody new. So it's a policy for me, meaning like when we'll have two maintainers, we will have more diversity in that sense. When we will have like 3 or 4 or 5 maintainers, is basically a question who willing to dedicate his time and effort on this task.
But what I don't get is, like, right now you're the only maintainer. Sahaj still can't just, like, let's say, merge a PR and cut a release. And we are, let's say, hypothetically, and again, I'm saying we have a disagreement, right? Like, you think something specifically, and again, I'm not saying that it's not something personal at all. I think that, you're the only person that does, outside of us, that does meaningful open source work, so theoretically, we appreciate you more than you could even think of. But what I'm saying is, I think, everyone can learn from everyone. And I think, and everyone can also improve themselves. And I think currently, if you look at the results and the discussions we are having now it's well over a year around, and even more around adding another core contributor and cutting out, TypeScript release, and the whole process, something, in my opinion, is not working well. And if we disagree with you, there's nothing we could do. Right now, there's no other maintainer, and until that point comes, and we disagree with you about the process of onboarding another core maintainer. So it's like we are stuck, and there's nothing we could do. Yeah, I hope you understand our position.
Yeah. So I think there is like a couple.
And I'll add another point. We are currently, you are aware of all the projects that we are doing and building. Currently, you are kind of forcing us with the only solution possible is to fork GraphQL.js. And other people in the community started doing that, and we always were against that. But you are currently forcing us into that, and I think it will be the worst outcome if that would happen.
Yeah, I agree. It's especially like, I'm okay if people fork it for experimental reason. Like, for example, there is lightweight version of GraphQL.js. Obviously, it's not the goal of this library to be like front-end only library. So for that reason for working is okay. But if somebody fork it for organizational reasons, I think it's really bad. So I want to separate like 2 points here. One point is about contribution, and like we discussed it a bunch of time, and there is a couple of points for me in PRs. So, and they're not complicated. Usually it's like just try to match the style of code, existing code. Spend the time to review yourself, and like don't force like huge chunks of codes that is not reviewable, because it's like, yeah, it's one issue. It's issue why like, for example, your TypeScript migration, it's not like, for example, Sahid actually took time and effort to split his PR into like commits.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's huge change, and at the same time I have a responsibility of not merging stuff that is not reviewed. I cannot just like say, especially for like people who like previously didn't contribute. So I need to start reviewing line by line. So,
but do you understand the paradox of what you're saying, right? Like we are now in this working with you and in front of you for 2 years. We know these arguments. The thing is, what usually you do is that in regular open source projects, someone submit a PR, you review it, you say, or you can even review it in a very short sentence and just say, overall, this is not good, please split it. Then if the person actually splits it into smaller commits, then you review it and you review the smaller commits. And then, at least get someone that gets their PRs merged. But what's happening today in GraphQL.js is that people are submitting PRs. Many of them, by the way, are submitting them according to your guidelines, like Yakov, for example, and And then, wait, let me finish. And then what you are doing many times is, even if they're small, you are like, because you don't have a lot of time, then it takes a long time until you come to review the PR. And then when you come to review the PR, instead of like asking the person to fix it and then to wait, to give them time, actually, you took a lot of time to review it, but then instead of that, you copy the code and you are merging it yourself. And then it means, if you look at the commit history, that you're the only committer. But that's actually not true. And this is actually one of the things that we disagree with the most. And we have a lot of examples of that, because what's happening is that you stay the only committer. And that means that you keep yourself as the only maintainer. And then that keeps the bottleneck. So I think that the current way, in my opinion, again, and that's where we disagree, but I have nothing to do with it except talking to you about it, is that this will stay the same for, like it's been for 3 years that we're trying to change that, it will stay the same for the next 3 years.
Yeah, so I will address this point. And I can send you commit. I explain it to, I think, Dotan or somebody from a guild a difference if PR is mostly good and I have just review question. I understand it's taken a long group to circle back. So usually I just apply fixes on top. So for example, Sahid or Yakov pairs, I never rewrite it. I just apply fixes on top. But if it's
I can tell you that if you're like, I can say maybe in the name of Yakov that couldn't be here today. Yakov is very frustrated, and he also already told us and also told Sahaj as well that he doesn't feel like he can contribute any longer to GraphQL.js. So, and Yakov is someone that follows your, but this is not his main job. It's actually he's working nights and he's actually a doctor. He's spending a lot of time on this. He's very passionate on it. And if he's the one, there's a lot of people. I think it's hard. It's hard for you to say that Dotan, Camille, Yakov, people that maintain the most active GraphQL libraries in open source and spend most of their time in open source, saying that they don't have the time to spend on it. Or I think it's like we could, let's say we disagree on that point.
Yeah. So it's, I don't want to, because I understand your basic question of what to do if we disagree. Before that, I want I'm like totally like I'm not happy about some minor detail, but like general contribution from Echo, I'm totally happy with. He is like spend effort and trying to make it like small PRs and good quality code. So on that side, and it's sad to hear that he is frustrated. I understand why. So I think it's two separate reasons. So yeah, but I understand your general idea of what to do if we disagree. So two separate things is not matching code quality and me basically rewriting PRs. And another thing is review response, basically, or time to merge. So I think it's two separate things.
I think there's one. I don't think it's. I mean, we don't care that if you would commit everything and you will be the only maintainer. If we would believe, we don't care about credits or any of this. All we care is the progress of GraphQL.js and not creating other forks of it, and having the community having a stable and modern and performant base. And currently, if the library was in a good release cadence, if the PRs and the issues were answered in a good way, in a timely manner, and we would feel there's enough progress on GraphQL.js itself, putting aside the spec and the new features that are not related to new GraphQL features, we wouldn't have this discussion. We wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I understand, but you need to understand the context before. So I wasn't like, for years, I volunteer my own time until in 2019, GraphQL Foundation start paying me like for 1 working week per month. And with amount of work is big, including summer of code. Summer of code is like you dedicated half of that time like through entire summer or even more. So, and season of dogs is the same. And like other responsibility for GraphQL Foundation. So I'm basically saying right now we're in a bootstrap phase. I'm open to bootstrap phase. I'm onboarding new maintainer, and I don't see anything else I can personally do. Like, what can I do beyond onboarding new maintainer?
I think we disagree about the process of onboarding a maintainer, because we are, or the results of it, I guess, because we started GraphQL.js working group. The first subjects that were, if you remember, the first GraphQL.js working group started because of it, and all the tests were around it. And the GraphQL.js working group came after we were in the working group itself, the regular working group, saying there's a problem. And then we started the GraphQL.js working group. So I think, in my opinion, since then, I haven't seen a meaningful change in the things that actually matter, in my opinion. I mean, if Sahaj would now, Sahaj or any other person that you can think of or want or choose in whatever way you want, but what I think, and again, let me just be clear. I don't think. I think it's a difference of opinion. I think you are really you're doing it from good heart, because, and also from professionalism, because you have a very high bar of code quality, of understanding, and all these things. And I think, though, there's let's say there's a somewhere there needs to be a choice, right? Because whoever would be onboarded will be less qualified than you.
Yeah, agree.
So the question is always just where the threshold is, right? And I think that the threshold should be dictated not only by the quality, but also by the state of the project. Because if the state of the project becomes like that a TypeScript migration takes that long, ESM support takes that long, that there's hundreds of issues, almost 100 PRs. People that are very active and very passionate and very smart and very experienced are getting discouraged. I think that this also needs to be taken into account. So that means that it means that we will need to, set maybe for a period of time a certain different standard. But the thing is, I think that maybe you don't see the urgency as the way that we see it. And I think part of it is maybe because we are working with the community in production every day. And we maintain those libraries, and we need to, again, we maintain some of the most popular libraries that use GraphQL.js, and we see that urgency.
Yeah, I'm personally starting to see some of it. So some of the stuff was purely theoretical, but I joined Apollo and I see some of the issues are real. And I'm in my work at Apollo, I'm responsible for some of them. In that sense, I agree. Another thing is reference implementation. What it means is people duplicating the code. So if we merge something into GraphQL.js, people in other implementation will follow. There is Python implementation, entire Python community basically use line by line copy of GraphQL.js into Python. So we're making decision not only for JavaScript community, we deciding for Python community also. And for other projects,
I agree. This is another point that I agree with you, but I also think the solution is different. I think what's happening right now, the fact that this is a reference implementation means that, I don't think it has to do anything with the fact that it's very slow. I think, again, I don't think that's the issue, because I think if we will, for example, have PRs and have them, have a list of people that are, let's say, from GraphQL Java, from Python, from other languages, review certain PRs themselves and have a debate about them, that's a way to do it. But currently, that's not the reason the things are slow. So I don't think what currently the solution is you decide for GraphQL Java, for Python, for .NET, and for the JavaScript community, what is a good enough quality and what is a fast enough cadence. And again, here, if we disagree, we basically have no one to turn to.
So about, so 2 points. My personal opinion is we should try to match, reasonably match quality of GraphQL specification. That means, like, my personal opinion is that between moving fast and code quality, I'm like on the side of code quality as my personal opinion of what is proper for this project. It doesn't answer your point of how to make decision if you disagree. This is complicated. We have technical steering committee basically to decide what type of stuff. But I would use it as a last resort if we especially since it's non-functional at the moment. So to put it in practical matter, so I think let's decide on two things. Distinguish two things, like bootstrapping process of new contributors and like a policy afterwards. So as probably you don't think it's a problem if we have like five core contributors and they decide who's on board. If it's like 5 diverse core contributors, it's like more or less normal situation, right? It's not a case that we want. Yeah,
I agree.
So that's why I don't want to, like, initially idea was to formalize, and it's too much, and I thought about that, and I didn't want to do like public disagreement on that, but basically I think every contributor should decide. That's why I don't want to formalize it, especially since we try to solve bootstrapping process with enforcing policy that will affect like project in the long run. So, okay. So question, how we get to this point of like 5 contributors? And another thing, some of issues should be, some of the stuff should be collectively made with timeout. So even if we have like 5, let's fix like 5 as like a goal at the moment. If it's 5 people, 5 core contributors, it doesn't mean like any of them decide to do release on Sunday without saying to anyone else. It's like this person say like we should do release. He waits for feedback from everybody else for reasonable amount of time, like couple of days or 1 week. And if nobody opposes, he basically do release himself, right? It's not a question. It's the idea that we try to achieve consensus, but nobody block this process.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea, and I think maybe a possible path, because the question, your first question is true. Like, how do we get from where we? That's the actual problem, right? How do we? And I think again, this is the core of everything. The TypeScript migration, the releases, the release cadence, the issues, all these things. I think it has to do with that. So I think, in my opinion, a possible solution could be. Currently, there's just you, and the process of Nintam was like, okay, let's sit with Sahaj and maybe others and slowly onboard them and everything. But maybe a solution could be, let's say, you decide on a group of 5 people today that you that will be diverse, right? So some could be from the guild, some could be from Apollo, some could be maybe Lee. Maybe from some people from the technical steering committee. I think I don't want to say this group is the technical steering committee because most of them, I think, are not actually working with GraphQL.js at all. So I think
this is a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so I think what we could do is like take you will decide on, let's say, a couple of these, and then until we get to the point where we have more committers or maintainers and everything, this group that you decided and agreed on, and we can help, but again, this is not something that we will push. We'll do the process as you described later, which is let's get a consensus between the 5. If someone is like taking too long, they continue, and then let's say, I don't know, let's say for you it takes longer. At least there's 4 people that are not having they're not working in the same company. They're not they're not having. I can think about a couple. Like one person that I will for sure mention is Benji, but I mean but I think like we can think about a couple of them, and then maybe this could be a good solution for everyone before it escalates even further, and that could give us the time to actually start advancing. And I think in my opinion, something like that would actually bring new energy for contributors, and that would actually be the engine that brings more people, more quality, and more contributors, and until a certain point where we get more core contributors.
Let me think about this. So basically, idea is that we have like somebody create a PR, and we have like set of we'll have like this row of like 2 people say it's like 2-3 people say it's okay, and 1 week pass and we merge it if nobody objects.
Like we could decide on the specifics, but something like that. Like if one objects, it's not going in. But if someone gives feedback, not like any one of them, especially you, if you're saying no, this code is not good, it's not going to get merged no matter what. But if you aren't there for very good reasons, you can't do that, and then there's 4 or 3 people that reviewed it and confirm it, I think it makes sense to merge it.
Actually, like not opposite. We can make it formal, but I'm not opposing right now. Actually, for people giving feedback on each other, like if Benji basically agreed to review like stuff on I understand what you're saying. So basically idea, if it's like volunteering with unfixed result. So basically, like, it's nobody's responsibility, and there is no like, it's not affecting a process. Like, people less motivated to give a feedback because they like feel it's like, in the end, it's basically me to decide what's much in or on what's not. But if we give them like this, basically this power of, okay, I need to think more, but preliminary, I think basically idea is that if nobody objects and like a couple of people review it and wait for like 1 week, and yeah, in a sense, it's basically, I think it's actually the most reasonable solution I see, because on one hand, it's actually like force me to provide feedback if I want this feedback to be counted in a reasonable time. If it's not coming in 1 week, yeah, maybe on this stage it's better to merge something non-ideal, but enable more contribution. Because yeah, especially like as I said with Yakov, I'm like totally happy with his code quality, and like I'm architecturally, I'm like sometimes disagree with him, but he's always reasonable in figure out solution. So when I give him feedback, he actually try to find solutions that satisfy with feedback. So the fact that his lost motivation of contributing, it's not on code quality side, it's on processes side. It's on have stuff. Yeah. I started. By the way, like, I'm totally happy if one of these people will be Yakov. I'm
Yeah,
like, he's usually provide good feedback, and he's know it from pragmatical side, and the fact we disagree on a lot of points that provide alternative view. The fact, most important, it's always argumented. So it's the same as Benji. If Benji agrees to, because it's also a commitment from a Benji.
Mm-hmm.
I need to
We
think
can
more,
like
but
get this as a proposal in the meeting to like
okay,
find more people or like tag people.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, like, I mean, this has to be a solution that you feel comfortable with, Ivan. So I think it has to be people that you decide on, and you feel as much as I understand that this solution is not comfortable as, you know, as it is right now, but I think, you know, you choosing the people would be as much comfortable for you as possible. So I'm
but at the same time,
with any choice you make, you know.
Yeah, at the same time, it's kind of more relaxing for me in a sense, because right now responsibility is not only control, it's like responsibility. So if something bad happens with GraphQL.js, it's I who made the whole decision, and if something bad, yeah. So
I know, to be, you know, and again, I'll repeat what I said a couple of times, but I'll even say it in a different way. I think you are doing an impossible job. And you've been put in this place, and I'm not saying you were forced to this, but I think the mechanism made it like that. And you have, in my opinion, in the whole GraphQL community, you have the biggest weight on your shoulders. And I think people don't understand that. And my goal here is to, and I completely understand it. I mean, we've been talking and working together in this way or another for like 4 years. I even remember talking to you in GraphQL Berlin in like 2017 or something, or 16, I don't remember. But I mean, I'm completely aware of everything. So I think my goal here is just to, first I agree with you. I think you are, the reason like it comes out at you is because you are in this position, not because you did anything bad. It's because you are carrying the weight and the responsibility no matter for what. There's no one else to carry this responsibility.
Yeah, it's one thing. Another thing, like, yeah, it was totally not accident. I contributed to it, but I'm not responsible for why we have one contributor right now.
Exactly.
It's not. So I'm responsible for another thing. If we will have more contributors in future, it's what's yeah. But on why this situation happened, it's another thing. By the way, I never onboard anybody on any project in my life.
I know.
So, and another thing, I think like it will always be stuff that we disagree on, even on like managing project and stuff. But I agree that right now it's not the best situation, and instead of figuring out I'm like, but I think it's good compromise on every front. And my main concern is that people should be it should be commitment from these people. What the worst thing we want is if we try this approach and with 5 people, basically technical steering committee is non-functioning right now, and I don't want to have technical steering committee for GraphQL.js that is also non-functioning.
Yeah, TSC doesn't make sense because like I don't even understand the point of TSC if they're not even contributing to any GraphQL related project. It just seems like a corporate thing just to make corporates happy that they have someone on board.
But I think I understand the reasoning why, but I think in that case, again, there's one person I think that at this stage sees the whole, and we're talking specifically about JavaScript right now, sees the whole JavaScript ecosystem, has practical knowledge, and sees the different projects and is aware of them. And that's you, Ivan. So I think for you to set up this, whatever, we can call it committee, we can just say those are just GraphQL.js reviewers, whatever.
Okay. Okay.
I agree with you. It shouldn't be something super complicated.
I think reviewers is better, and clearly outline. Another thing, I don't want it to be permanent. I want it to be like bootstrap process, especially since election and always like thing is. I don't think we need to go to bureaucratic level of technical steering committee. I think the bootstrap method of addressing issue of not discouraging people from PRs, from making PRs.
Yeah, and I also agree, like, you know, a possible, like you decide on who will do it, and you also at any point in time should have the freedom to say, this is not working, we're stopping this experiment. I think that is completely reasonable.
Yeah, let's try. I'm like, I don't really see any like technically, like a bunch of people have commit rights and admin rights on the repo. It's a question of so I don't Benji. I think Benji have admin rights on like everything, and I give commit rights to Yakov long ago. So I think
yeah, I think it's not technical, like it's not technical a matter of permissions. Like even if I have permissions now, I'm not gonna commit into master.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So it's
Yeah.
more of you and the way you manage it. It's like more amorphic and just whatever you see fit.
Yeah, one thing, I just like have a bunch of stuff on my plate right now. I want to cut 16.0.0 release, since it's like it's affecting stuff at Apollo, and it's affecting. So let's do it. But I don't want to like stretch it. So we can create a channel in Discord to discuss it, and we can invite. We can already call it GraphQL. I'm not familiar with Discord because I'm not admin there. So if you can you create a channel called GraphQL.js reviewers or something, private channel, and invite 3 of us right now, and when like other people will agree to participate. So I will ask, for example, Sito from Christopher from GraphQL Python. No, GraphQL Python. Of course, he like previously I actually wanted to give him a right to merge stuff because he's really familiar with code base. Problem that he's didn't want to do that, but I will approach him with a simpler task of reviewing PRs, especially if it's temporary. Maybe he will agree.
How should I name the channel?
GraphQL.js reviewers or something. I think we can rename it always.
Yeah.
And invite 3 of us, and we can. One thing. Let's postpone it for 1 week. I will think, and I will finish 16.0.0 to have like more time to dedicate. In meantime, I will try to contact like people and see if they agreed or not. And let's do like that. Let's get some start with time limit on that thing. 1 week for me to finish like what I'm doing right now and think about the entire idea, and another week to contact like people. And if in 2 weeks we have like not figure out the list of people, let's try to brainstorm this list together and see. So basically, idea to figure out if, because I think people having volunteers who familiar with code base. Otherwise, it's just like people will review common JavaScript without context. So having people who understand context is like critical. And I don't want to just like even if Lee agrees, Lee's schedule is not working for such role. So key thing is we have like, especially if we want to motivate contribution people, right now it's low, but more and more people will contribute if this plan work as expected. So it's the person should be okay with reviewing like 5-10 PRs per week, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a try, and thanks for being open for it. Thanks for being open for it.
Yeah, because like I also agree it's not situation. I want to give this project in good hands. The same with like Apollo. Apollo have a lot of Rust is moving direction. I want to try Rust, but as we discussed with Apollo, I just cannot abandon this project right now. I want it to be in better shape. So in good hands. And for that, let's try this example, because another one, I still think the whole effort with Sahid was helpful for me, and for you, Sahid, is also like the whole mentorship experience was positive, and it's enabled you to be involved in this project. On the other side, in this tempo, it will take like years to come to a situation that we discuss. This solution allows it to increase stuff in less than a year. So yeah, totally different scale if it works. So let's try. Let's try. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for being open for it, and we want to help as much as we can here. So if you think there's more we could do and things we could, please let me know. In terms of effort, in terms of time, in terms of anything.
Yeah, one thing, as I said, like I need 1 week to I have like some personal stuff and some work stuff in 16.0.0. So I will basically dedicate my time to 16.0.0 cutting with release. So for 1 week, if I'm not write anything in this channel, it's because I try to finish other tasks. Later I will switch. Next week I will switch to this one.
Okay.
Plus working group is coming. I need to prepare some stuff for working group. Yeah, it's so basically like I take in silence for a week.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, and let's. I created a channel on Discord, and let me know if there's an issue there. And yeah, thanks for being open for it. Really, I hope it will be good for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I muted myself and I start talking. Sahid, what do you think about this process? Because it was back and forth between me and Uri for the whole time.
Yeah, I think it's we should try this out, because like I think a similar thing Rust does. Like they have a core team that will review your pull requests and then they will merge them based on like how many people approve it. So I think it's a good direction that we are going in. Like instead of one person blocking, we have like a couple people debating and then we are moving forward. I think that's how it should be done. So
yeah,
let's
especially
try this out.
Since wait, I don't see any cons. The only cons I see if it's like you sacrifice some like review from, well, for example, I know something but I don't have a time to review it. But in that case, yeah, I agree with Uri. So Uri, like maybe we disagree on a scale, but I totally agree that it's okay to sacrifice some code quality for onboarding new contributors. Yeah. So I don't have a problem in general with just like, balancing stuff. And what your approach is, it's like, yeah, I feel more confident doing that way. So it's, yeah, I think we discussed everything. It wasn't, helpful conversation, especially since you're right, we started with working group, not to discuss like tactical things, but biggest thing was strategic one on how to bootstrap this project. Maybe it's the most important topic in this working group in the end.
Yeah, thank you for being open for this. And I agree with you. I think, I think at any long-term open source project, there's come a point where you have to have more maintainers, which means there's going to be some effect on the short term, but then on the long term, it's going to be better. And I think, we all see GraphQL continuing for years. So I believe, doing that, again, it's an experiment. We'll see how it goes, but in the future, I think it will be beneficial overall.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that point. It's the same like with any kind of delegation. For delegating stuff, you need to accept like some trade-off, especially the temporary. Yeah, was important conversation, and yes, I need to process that thing for myself also. Yeah. Anyway, we can always continue in Discord.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Ivan. Thanks for the time and thanks for listening. And thanks for being open for it. Yeah. And thanks for all the work that you're doing. Really. Okay. Bye, everyone.
See you. Bye.